Hey there, welcome to my studio here in New York City. I'm Daniel Norton, and today we're going to talk a little bit about gels. So I get this question a lot. I figured I'd go over it really quickly here. I get a question of how do we put gels onto flash? So I'm going to use this ProPhoto B10 as an example, and we'll kind of talk about it. The simplest way in this case is ProPhoto actually makes an attachment, right, that allows you to put gels directly on. Okay, shortest video ever. But seriously though, depending on what system you have, you may not have such a thing available. So how do we put a gel on? What we have to consider is that gels, while they are somewhat heat resistant, they can still melt. So we want to be wary of that. The other thing we want to think about is that if we want to use, let's say, a bare head, and we put the gel on flat, that's going to be good, right? But we may have a problem with heat. But if we put it on with some space, now the gel itself is going to become our light source, right? It's going to spread in different directions. And we can use that to our advantage if we want. But the simplest way to do this kind of thing would be one of two ways. Either if you're going to do it like this, oftentimes I'll use something like a clothespin, or you could tape it. Try not to put tape on the light though. Tape the gel itself and stick it on here. Right, so here we can see, even though it's not perfect, I've got it pretty close. It is going to spread out more. But there's still some air for it to breathe, so it shouldn't melt. If I'm going to run the modeling light a lot, I would make sure I want to move it more forward, right? That's going to be important. This uses an LED modeling light, so it's not too bad, but older strobes, be very careful of that. All right, that might be one of the easiest ways to do it, right? But let's talk a little bit more about how we do it, let's say, in softboxes and other things. Okay, so if you are in a studio environment or you have enough gear around to do this, this can be a really effective way to do it. We've got a frame here. I've talked about these before. This is a smaller one. This one's 18 by 24, I believe. You can get larger gels, not this one. This is from a gel kit. It's too small, obviously. Well, I suppose you could use this on some level. And what you can do is put the gel on this and then basically butt it as close as possible in front of your flash. This way, again, you're trying not to get too much extra spread. This works really well. You can also put it a little more in front and, let's say, throw some diffusion on it and create kind of a softboxy vibe as well. We've done that before. So I'm talking about color gels right now, but if you're doing diffusion, you might want to put it out in front a little bit. You could put, a piece of cardboard in front of one of these. There's lots of uses for this. If you want to see a video about, I don't know, half a dozen ways to use one of these, let me know in the comments below. But let's talk about softboxes. So if you've got a small-ish softbox and you get a full cut of a gel, which is, as you can see, bigger than this softbox, we can actually, using the clothespins, clip it right to the front of the softbox. Pretty simply, like this. This is good for a really quick, right? However, like I mentioned before, this becomes my source. So if I'm trying to cut the light, use a grid, something like that, you don't want to put this in front of the grid because it's going to spread it out, especially if it's diffusion, right? So what a lot of people will do is they'll cut this exactly to size and clip it inside, recessed inside. So it depends on if you want to cut up your gels to size. If you use them a lot, that's a good idea. If you're kind of using the gels with different lights and it's not so precise, then this works really fine. No problem. But what do we do if our softbox is bigger than the gel? Let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is a 2 foot by 3 foot box. It is larger than that gel that I have. So how do I gel this? Well, you could cut up multiple gels, obviously, and try to cover it perfect, but any overlap could make it a little bit less perfect. And that can be a lot of work unless you're going to use it all the time. So one quick tip and something that I do a lot is I'll actually put it on behind, right? What we're going to do is gel the light before it hits the front of the softbox. So if we look at the back of our softbox, we've got some space in here. And we can basically take our gel, usually this smaller one is fine, and we're going to put it in here as so. Now you want to put it as close as possible, again, to the light head so that we don't have spill, right? We don't want the light to come around of the gel. So we're going to basically clip it on. We're just using clothespins, and then we'll just close this up around it. And basically we're good to go. And now this is going to allow us to have nice color gel light. No problem, easy. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah. Right, and we can see that the entire box is lit perfectly even with the gel color. Easy as that, right? So that's basically it. The same thing's going to work no matter what you do. If you have a beauty dish, it's round, right? We can cut the gel exactly the size. We could clamp it on top as long as it's big enough. If you are going to use a grid though, again, the same thing matters, or any kind of diffusion, put it behind the grid. Otherwise, you're kind of defeating the purpose of the grid. It's going to reflect off. One other reason to not put the gel on the outside of the box is that sometimes the gel will create some kind of an odd reflection from other lights. So some people will always put them behind the diffusion no matter what. You know, it depends on your set and what you're doing, but pretty simple. Get yourself some clothespins or go to a photo place where they call them C47s and they'll charge you a lot more. Make sure that they are wooden. Get yourself some gel kits, mess around with them. And if you have some other kind of light, you have some other kind of question about this, let me know. Put it in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you get the notifications, and I'll see you next time.